Thank you for joining us today. My name is Steve Wolfenbarger, and I'm the Education Manager for AHOA. As we continue our series on the impact of the hospitality industry due to COVID-19, we are happy to host today's webinar in partnership with the California Hotel and Lodging Association as we welcome Craig Carbonier from Milestone. In today's webinar, he will discuss how to market in a down economy and what you can do for your future. Now, before handing this over to Craig, I'd like to read this disclaimer for all of those listening to this presentation. AHOA does not provide legal or business advice or representation to any individual persons or members. AHOA goes to great lengths to ensure the information it provides is accurate and useful, but strongly recommends all persons obtain professional advice and/or legal representation which is appropriate to their particular situation. Further, AHOA does not endorse any companies nor any of the products or services they offer. There will be a Q&A available at the end of the presentation. For any questions that you may have, please type them in the question section. Also, we are encouraging you to take advantage of this opportunity to ask what is on your mind, and don't be shy, but please note that we may not get through all questions during our time. Also, we will make today's presentation available for all within 24 hours on our COVID-19 resource page. We're excited to have you all here today, and with no further delay, I welcome Craig to begin.
Thanks for that intro. Yeah, I appreciate it, Steve. I know prior to the webinar, we kind of took a deep breath together. It's a beautiful day outside here in Southern California, and we have a lot to be thankful for. But, thank you, AHOA. Thank you, CHNLA, for having me today. We're looking forward to guiding our hoteliers and our community through this very challenging time. But all along the way, I want to try and share positivity. I think that's how we must remain to come out of this stronger. So if anyone's not familiar with Milestone, so we are a full service digital marketing agency offering software as well as agency services to largely hospitality as well as restaurants, retail, finance, automotive. So really have a ton of experience doing this really well, driving revenue and traffic from digital to our partners. So before we get into this, as I mentioned before, we have to look at the positivity. A lot of our friends in the community are challenged during this time. We want to show empathy. Obviously, we're fortunate enough for those here on the webinar in California from the CHNLA, not impacted as greatly as our friends in New York. Just know we're here for you, and it's our time to come together as a community. So for today's agenda, we're going to walk through 3 different phases of what we identified as, a marketer's roadmap: crisis, recovery, and growth, right? So when you see the acronym CRG, that's what we're referring to. We're also going to dive into key steps and tactics to address each of those phases, and then leave you with some takeaways. What can you do today at your hotel? What can you do as we come out of this into recovery, and then hopefully return to some level of normalcy and be competitive again within our markets? Important to start with, right? Businesses around the world are being proactive, and quite frankly, they're doing the right things, especially now, right? Chipotle, one of my favorite restaurant chains, is adapting, allowing for delivery that they've not typically offered through partners like Uber Eats. The New England Aquarium, this was one of those that I try and log into each day just to clear my head, offering virtual tours inside their aquarium exhibits, really just giving us sort of a break from, our day-to-day lives. And then far right, Hilton really leading and being a great resource, giving their guests, a sense that they're here for them. They're taking all the precautions to make sure their employees as well as their guests are safe. Some great leadership from a lot of different industries. So we'll dive into this. And really, this roadmap is the brainchild of our founder, Banu Agarwal. She and the rest of our leadership team getting a lot of requests from clients. Hey, we're in unprecedented times. What are some things that we can do now to hopefully lead ourselves up to a better outcome months down the road, so that we're proactive? So those three phases again: crisis, recovery, and growth. In the crisis stage, we're going to really just look at conserving what we have, right? So from a budget perspective, being a lot more efficient, adjust our messaging and the content to really adapt to what guests are looking for, and engage with guests. It's a great opportunity, right? It goes without saying, now's the time for us to build that relationship now, so more than ever. In recovery, we'll talk through sort of adapting to this quote unquote new normal and what that means to our marketing efforts. And then lastly, I'll touch on, not as deeply as some of the others, but look at growth. Again, leave us with some positivity and some thoughts for maybe future sessions on how we can leverage some of these learnings and these strategies to come at this even stronger. So we'll start with the crisis phase. So our hospitality industry is really responding in a positive manner, right? We're looking outside the box. We're looking at different ways that we can continue to keep our lights on. These are just some of those. You had saw with Aimbridge and their property in New York, housing healthcare workers. Again, with occupancy so low, that's an opportunity for them to not only support mankind, but obviously keep their hotels in operation. This group of local restaurants in the Bay Area, they're giving meals to first response workers, healthcare, safety, security, giving back to the community that's really supporting them right now. And then just like this webinar, right, finding creative ways to connect with your guests, if you're on the sales side, with your clients, and just keep that interaction very lively and active. So when we look at our marketing efforts, guests are consuming content today at a much higher rate than even months or weeks prior. Our digital sort of signature is our website, right? We need to update and maintain with relevant content, right? The example, one of our clients on the left-hand side, they're not selling rooms today, but what they are trying to do is keep their guests engaged, knowing that when they are ready to travel, when they're able to travel, they'll be here for them, and leading them to a lot more relevant content at this time. On the right-hand side, this is sort of that click-through, is their executive chef is sharing recipes of things that they can do while working from home and living with this new environment. But again, all of this content is found on the hotel's website. It's an opportunity for them to stay in touch with their guests, but still giving them and offering them some value, especially at this time. The second area we need to look at from a content perspective, and this is certainly more from a physical case, is how are we listed across the web? So beyond our website, where are the areas that guests are finding you, and how could they, at this point, connect with you? So ensuring that your local listings are accurate, they're current, and they're consistent. We've been fortunate to develop tools for our clients to do that efficiently by just updating information. There are a lot of tools on the market that you can look to address this area. The areas you really want to look at are UNAP, which stands for URL, name, address, phone number. Your attributes, so what are you in the business of today? Answering any sort of frequently asked questions that are on those channels, making sure your description is tight, and that you're obviously very descriptive and true to the current state. But remember, right, with so many of our guests consuming content on a variety of devices, let's keep in mind how they're receiving that information. So on the far right, these are some of those endpoints from the business listings that your hotel has already created, right? Whether they're your Series of the world, whether they're your mobile devices, your car's navigation, right? That work from home laptop that's staring at each of us right now. Making sure that from those endpoints, guests are able to they get access to your content, and that's correct. This is just one example, or a couple examples of this. So nothing's more frustrating right now that you arrive at a business, whether it be a restaurant or a grocery store even, and their hours of operations are not current, they're not reflected. So I'm going to actually go through each one on this list. So this is actually a restaurant on the far left. They're identifying within their name that they do have takeout available. While they are closed for dining in, they are available for takeout. Their menu is readily available so that people can access it to place those delivery orders. And then lastly, their business information is available there as well. In the center, this is an Apple Store, right? As with many of our hotels, we're temporarily closed. Let's make sure that we're giving that message. Make sure that that information is available within your Google My Business listing and updating it appropriately. And then for the brand on the far right, brands now more than ever need to engage with their customers and need to be available for their customers. Making sure that all of those different sources are available to them. And lastly, right, if you're not in control of this, the search engines are just going to find it elsewhere, right? They're going to start to crowdsource that information. And that's never a good circumstance, knowing that you were not the owner of it. So make sure that you're managing your business listings and that they reflect your current business state. Also, right, I'd mentioned content, sort of the consumption of content today. This has become a major trend even prior to the pandemic, where zero-click and, more importantly, voice search is tending to be the theme on how our guests are consuming content of our hotel. On the left-hand side, this is a great example, right? This is one of our partners in San Francisco. When their guests are ready to travel and when they're visiting internationally, their availability of airport shuttle is a commonly, frequently asked question for them. This result is coming directly from their website. Again, it's not from a third-party source. We know that the content is accurate, and we're getting benefit from this holy grail, as we call it, placement. This is on the search engine results page above any other result. This hotel didn't pay anything for it. It's an organic search result. It just has to look to incorporate that on the website with some very technical best practices such as schema. On the right-hand side, right, this might be closer to home for us right now, no pun intended, but order delivery, right? These are some of the ways that that McDonald's is implementing these same best practices for their menus. Remember, right, all of these things, these were opportunities for us before the pandemic. At this point in time, it's our way to communicate, right, what is the current state. But even beyond this, right, as we get into the other stages, keep this in mind. It's an opportunity for us to share evergreen content, material that's always popular, and using that to really answer those questions that are common from your guests. And when our team has done this, right, we're seeing a tremendous increase in click-through rate. We know that guests are enjoying this type of content. These are the stages we looked at. We look to gain that intelligence. Obviously, we want to ask team members and collect information from the current website. What are guests asking for, especially now, right? We've also pulled that from Google Search Console to get most frequently asked questions. And then we're answering those, wrapping them in schema. If anyone here is familiar, that's a tag, a Google best practice that they've identified, which allows you to tag content found on your website to give context and definition. For example, your name, your address, your phone number. What are your room types? What are your hours of operation? But success, this example, is looked at with impressions, click-through rate, and ultimately clicks. Slightly different than in months prior, we're really looking to use this as engagement, right? An opportunity for us to be top of mind with guests and stay the resource for them. I'm going to touch on this briefly. Some of our clients, it's impacted. Obviously, anyone with physical events that have either canceled or moved those online, making sure that those events are also updated. A great way to do that, again, is with schemas. You can create visibility with that structured data to give definition to if that event is in fact continuing or if it's been changed. So for example, as we touched on prior, they're changing in-person to virtual and the like. Social media, right? We need to look at this as a channel, especially during the crisis phase, that we can connect, right? Collecting information. On the left-hand side, again, this is a San Francisco example, but they're giving a message of empathy. Again, looking for likes and connecting with their guests. Even now, they're not selling anything, but they're really just trying to give that sense of community. In the center, this is from Expedia. They're trying to learn from their customers. What's your favorite staycation activity? Trust me, we want to use that down the road. But for this time, share some positivity. Let's get excited for the future. The right-hand side, this is Sprinkles, the cupcakes, right? So their business has adapted. They're now allowing for curbside pickup. But again, another way for you to connect with your customers. It might not be as hard of a sell as we looked at in the past. This is really just trying to gather sentiment and feedback. Trust me, you'll want this in the future, and we'll touch on that later. Throughout the entire section, we've talked about content. Again, going back to the device type of priority, right? Mobile. We're all talking through our, or I am at least, talking through my mobile phone. We all have it in our hand. This is the area that we need to give a lot of attention to, especially now. Accelerated Mobile Pages, or AMP, was a Google project that they released a couple years back. it's now been adapted throughout hospitality. A lot of OTAs leverage this technology to capture customers as well as bookings. The theme here is AMP allows for mobile sites to be extremely fast, lightning fast to this, for lack of a better word, 10 times the speed at the current site. So really looking at what is critical content on your website today. Is it our information about cancellation policy, which we would never highlight in previous dates, but that's an important comfort factor, especially when guests are looking to make bookings. Frequently asked questions, like we mentioned before, making sure that you're applying accelerated mobile pages to that content. And we've seen, when we looked at 12 of our projects, an increased mobile visits, total visits, both pre and post, and then impressions from those pages. This to be practiced prior to the pandemic. So some takeaways and things in this phase. Maintain your website. Now's your time to really be there, look at the content that's available, make sure it's timely and relevant, right? Repurpose anything that you have, right? So if you have pages that you've identified for certain maybe seasonal events or that type of thing, look to just incorporate maybe a different flip to it, right? Adding COVID-related content. This is an area that's getting a lot of attention across hospitality. Let's make sure that we have that information available. Any frequently asked questions related to COVID and how you're addressing it, and then making sure that those top pages, we then apply mobile best practices such as AMP. Ensuring your local listings are current, right? If you're no longer open, make sure that your business listings reflect that. Going into your knowledge panel, following the call and just making sure it's accurate. If there are any opportunities such as reviews or questions, make sure that those are included there as well. And then start developing new content, right? A lot of us are facing maybe some spare time on our hands, and make sure that you're creating content, you're sharing out on your social channels, you're making sure that you're gaining benefit from that as we come out of this crisis, to lay the groundwork for some of these best practices such as voice search. Now, the next area I want to cover is recovery, right? So we're probably knee deep all in the crisis phase. Let's start looking forward, right? Let's deal with sort of the new environment we're in, and how can we set ourselves up for positive future. So those 5 steps for a strong recovery. Let's look at, why are we a leader in our comp set? Why are we a leader in the market? Let's look back at what's unique about our properties, and then giving sort of clarity as well as emphasis, focus on those unique selling points. Digital media activation, looking at, so your advertising channels in the previous months were likely very positive. You had very good results from advertising. You've been asked to be more efficient, potentially even cut budget. Let's talk about how to inch back into that. SEO visibility. This is always a hot topic, certainly with our clients here at Milestone. How can we get stronger visibility while still being efficient in terms of expense? It's a great channel for you to really strengthen that foundation. Mobile enhancements, we're going to continue the theme that we covered during the crisis phase, but build on it. And then lastly, email activation. Email is a great, or email acquisition, I apologize. It's a great channel for you to communicate with guests. Guests are really, again, they're a sponge for this type of content. It's a great way for you to communicate with them. So those unique selling points, right? it's an exercise that I've enjoyed thoroughly in the last couple of weeks with my clients. Why are we a leader, right? What are the things our guests enjoy most about our properties? And making sure that we highlight that. These areas are great ways to do that. So when we talk about offering stays in the future to prospective guests, make those extremely targeted, right? We use the term discounts, but use it sparingly. I'll go into that in just a moment. But this was a Florida resident rate. That'll likely come back prior to other markets, your local guests. So making sure you're speaking to them with your website content. Any updates, right? Especially when you open your doors again, you want to make sure that that is broadcasted everywhere you could think of, right? So this was a great banner ad that a client of ours had submitted outside of hospitality, by the way. So it's been successful for them. Offering benefit, right? Beyond financial, what are some of the benefits for staying with us? Really taking a hard look at your direct booking benefits again. Now's the time, right? Looking at what are our opportunities to benefit now with a little bit less. And then lastly, unique attributes, right? Again, the idea of what makes you special and looking at providing your guests with an incentive to enjoy those unique attributes. The last point here, and I just kind of want to touch on a little bit more, the idea of avoiding discounting, right? You've heard a lot of others in our industry. This is not an area for us to create demand. Just know that not every offer that you're giving, especially while you engage, knowing that that is a meaningful way to connect with your guests, it doesn't always have to incorporate a discount. And I would personally advise, maybe look really hard at, what we're offering and do we really need to take that extra step from a financial perspective. Digital media activation. So with a lot of our clients, looking at being a lot more efficient with their advertising budgets. A traditional term has been referred to as pay-per-click advertising. It's also referred to as that. What you really want to look at is approaching it from a bottom up. So on the bottom of this funnel, we're looking at remarketing. That is typically your highest return advertising channel. Those are guests who have already been to your site, making sure that you're communicating to them from a display banner perspective. Paid search and branded paid search specifically. Simply put, this is anytime a guest is searching on Google, in this example, by your brand name. Those are guests who are already familiar with you. They've stayed with you before. They've already learned about you. They're ready to transact at that particular time. Those are the areas that you want to put emphasis in. As you work your way up the funnel, then you look at non-branded paid search, which is anything that does not incorporate your brand name. So hotels in my city with a pool, right? Those typically cost a little bit more. So it's not, it might not be an immediate opportunity at your particular hotel, but just keeping that in mind, because that's obviously where we want to take this, especially coming out into growth. And then display and social. From an advertising perspective, it's for awareness. So we really just want to align those, what we've learned from our guests to really how do we supplement, where are the opportunities that we can hopefully boost up the other areas that the engagement we're not getting just naturally. Right? And this is another look at that. I think this is a great way to visualize, right? So in the gray, these are your brand terms, typically come with the least amount of cost or budget, but definitely have the highest return as you work your way up the list. That leads then towards the awareness and trying to gain mind share of guests who are traveling to your destination once that's available. And even in all of this, so even as an agency, we're restrained, right? If you're dealing with a slightly smaller budget or less resources, you really want to target, right? And these are all different ways that you can personalize an ad for a certain audience, right? By age, by gender, by device, by where they're searching from, what they're interested in, the time of day, right? Never would we target to that extreme. But again, with the theme of doing more with less, this is an area that we recommend looking at to be efficient with cost as well as strong with return. So now from an organic standpoint, right, invest in SEO. Now's your time. Strengthen your foundation. Make sure that everything is concrete. Use this time to expand on content, right? Analyze your frequently asked questions from your site. Make sure that those align with the questions that you're actually getting from your reservations team or your customer service, your front desk. Answer those questions, be helpful, be relevant, and then expand on that, right? This is an example of, this is always a best practice, guys. What can we start doing now in the current state? And then how do we gain benefit from this in the weeks and months after? Add or improve schema. Guys, I can't emphasize enough, schema as far as a technical search engine optimization best practice is your strongest tool at this point. This is communicating directly with the search engine. It's giving very well-defined context regarding what's available on your website, and it's certainly something that I think if there's one area that we should take away, how do we implement schema today so that we can benefit from that in the weeks to come. Make sure that from that standpoint, you're continuing to maintain each of these things. So I know we're elaborating sort of on the benefits of schema so that you're taking full advantage of that. I can talk about it in probably a separate webinar, but make sure that you're equipped to maintain and build on that. And then lastly, we talked through mobile, adding AMP to all of your critical pages, making sure that Google views them with the highest priority. That would be a great takeaway here. And if I want to elaborate a little bit more on mobile, right? So, these stats are prior to the pandemic, but still apply because they were earlier this year. I would say even more so in the current state. But really, the share of traffic by device type for many of my hotels, it's actually surpassed desktop visits. Mobile device has been the priority for them. So when we think through that, the idea of prioritizing that device then becomes critical. And as you do that, just know that how you implement that, how how you address mobile by looking at not only what's available there, but the speed at which it's provided to your guests. That's critical. Every drop in page speed, I think I'd seen a stat, it was several dollars in revenue every second that we lose. So we need to know nothing more. That would be an area of opportunity. And if I want to expand on that, so mobile, especially now and during the recovery, these are 4 areas that I encourage you to really look at. Elevate your calls to action. call to action today is slightly different than a couple months ago. So in this example, this was frequently asked questions for cancellation policies, giving our guests a sense of comfort. But we're elevating that. Prior, we probably have it lower, below the fold in most cases on websites. We're looking to prioritize that. In the second example, this is a light box for offers and news-related updates. It's also referred to as a pop-up. So if any of you are familiar, that would be a great area for you to learn from the current COVID and applying those best practices. The third, right, this is the best practice prior and now leading after, making sure that it's very simple for our guests to engage with us and ultimately convert. We're going to come out much stronger than we did in days prior if we're looking at those best practices. And lastly, right, taking advantage of any opportunity to target our content, right? If we're looking to recover in local business, now's your time, right, to get out that information and specifically prioritize the mobile experience and how that is displayed on a mobile device. Email, I touched on it earlier. It's a great channel for us to communicate and engage with our guests. This is going a step further than just collecting email addresses. Obviously, that's sort of the starting point. But making sure that you're giving value for that subscription. So in the center, this is a thank you email. So a guest has subscribed to your email list via your website. You're thanking them for their subscription. You're offering them something to continue to build their loyalty. This is a great way. I heard from another member of our team that these emails get the most open, the highest open rate. Any thank you email or a confirmation email type, that gets the highest engagement. And then align, right? Making sure that everything you have available on your desktop site, on your mobile, your ANT pages, is reflected in your email newsletter, right? Aligning those to make sure that they're that they align with our goals. So some takeaway things in the crisis phase. It's now our opportunity to really tune, right? Fine tune some of our offers and our messaging. Run experiments, right? Don't assume that because you like this, your guests like this. So try different examples, try different emails, see what's getting interest. Optimize your flow, right? Making sure that those offers that you're making are actually leading to meaningful website activity. Protecting your brand, and this is specific to your advertising, right? Continue to run branded search. It always comes with a high return on ad spend, and it would be an area for you to maintain, especially during this time, while still being efficient. Look at your mobile experience, guys. That has taken priority prior to the current state, but even more so, it's become critical. And enhancing all of those marketing efforts with consistent messaging, leading guests to engagement and to hopefully in the coming months to a loyal guest. Growth, right? We're back in the game. All right, guys, let's stay positive. We've made it this far. We're resilient. These are some of those strategies from an omni-channel perspective. Since we've learned all of these different tactics, how do we bring them together to really soar in the growth phase, right? Looking at, since we've strengthened our foundation towards the center in crisis and recovery, we're now looking to amplify that via our paid search, via our meta search, via display advertising and social, right? We're taking advantage of now all of these tools in our toolbox to really sprint out of this. And we're taking the learnings from the other phases, and now we're soaring here. So as far as some of the next steps that we would recommend, right? Figure out which stage you are in. I'm not going to assume that everyone's in the same situation. If your hotel's closed, if your hotel's open, if you might be in a market less affected, figure that out. Map your plan, your personal plan. You're likely already starting some of these things, right? But map it to the stages that we highlight here. Engage your team, right? Or if you're working with a third-party agency, make sure that you align, right? Engage, get those people going towards the same direction so that we can achieve the same goal coming out of this. Listen to your customers. It goes without saying, but now more than ever is a great way for us to learn about what our customers want, and if there are any changes to that journey, right? It's a fun experiment. Look now to see where your guests are coming from on your website. I'm going to make some predictions. They're likely on a mobile device. They're likely looking at either local or even further markets just to gain some inspiration in travel. Make sure that you have that content available and running experiments. Let's not assume too much. Let's make sure that we're testing things. Now's the time to do that. This number 6, I'm going to go into that in just a second, but this is a way for Milestone to help you accelerate that process. I suggest you take advantage of it. It's not going to cost you anything, and it would be a great way for us to also give you further value, especially now. Webinars, AHOA, CHNLA, we're working together with those associations to push out content. I'm going to share a link on the following page. Milestone also has a series of educational webinars to get you through these different phases. We'll actually go into phases in further detail during those webinars. I encourage you to stay involved and keep learning about how we can come out of this stronger. Lastly, stay safe, guys. I mean, practice everything that you're being told. This is not a time for us to go rogue. It'll help our industry altogether. You know, it's difficult now, but that is an area that we must respect. So as I mentioned before, this is a link. Go to it now. I'll keep it up on the screen for a few minutes. This is an offer that Milestone is giving to all the attendees, or the first 30 attendees in this case. It's a very robust digital marketing audit that gives you a real perspective of where you're at today, right? And then with each of the strategies we've outlined, how can we build on this foundation that we have? If there's an opportunity for you to strengthen that, well, then that should be the priority and the focus. But this is an important area to understand where we sit today. Okay, well, I think, Steve, we'll open it to any questions. This is a link that I was mentioning, guys, before we get into it, blog.milestoneinternet.com. We're releasing a ton of articles on how hoteliers can deal in the current environment. And then, as I mentioned, Milestone will also be releasing very detailed webinars for each of these stages, especially if you want further context. My contact information is here. I'll tell you now, that's my cell phone. You're welcome to call, text. I'm here for you just as the rest of our community. So I'm committed regardless if it's a digital related item or something even outside. I'm happy to help wherever I can.
Thanks, Craig. We definitely have some questions, and if you have additional questions, please type them into the question section. The first one that came through, Craig, was Of the 90,000 or so hotels and motels in the U.S., a large number of them, approximately 10,000, do not have websites. How important is mobile-friendly websites to Google search, considering mobile devices now dominate internet search?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a great question. So you've probably heard of the term mobile first, right? It's an action that Google's now taken to prioritize the mobile experience over all other device types, knowing that from my earlier statement, most hotels are getting a majority of their traffic from mobile. So to answer the question, it's critical. Now, quite frankly, it was critical a couple years ago, but obviously, now is the time. If you've not addressed mobile in a meaningful way, look to leaders in the industry. I've been fortunate and blessed to work at Milestone, who has really taken mobile and innovated on top of it. But it's critical, guys. I couldn't emphasize it more. A lot of the strategies that we touched on today had some assumptions that you had addressed mobile, you saw the opportunity, and then you expanded on it, knowing the current state. So that was a long answer to give. It's critical.
Craig, just as a follow-up to that, because here at AHOA, and I'm sure CHLA has this also, we hear a lot about ADA compliance with your website. How does that work with the mobile devices? And if you can't answer, I understand.
Sure. And it's a webinar for another day, I'm sure. ADA conformity as it relates to websites. If we've not yet been impacted, we've seen the impact to friends in the community. It's an important thing when we're talking about any sort of web experience, making sure that it's accessible for all of our guests. Now, I may not answer it specifically. I don't think I have enough time, but mobile does play a role in that. Please send me an email if you have been impacted and that is maybe an area that you need help in. I'm happy to guide you. But it certainly covers every online or the web experience across various device types.
Great. Next question that came through, Craig, is are websites a good investment if I own a franchise brand, since brands offer only a landing page?
Sure. So you must be referring to independent or traditionally referred to as vanity websites. So I'm not going to blanket a statement. I believe that they have a place today, but really, I think it goes. I might actually point, part of the question back. What are your goals, right? If your goals are to generate, meetings, weddings, spa reservations, right? Oftentimes, it's an opportunity on an independent or vanity site to really build out that story, right? And slightly more than, as you touched on, maybe a single page from the brand. Now, of course, the brand offers tremendous value, and I wouldn't discredit or discount that. But in some examples, especially if those aligned with your goals, independent or vanity site could be a good option for you. Again, it goes back to the goals that you have for your hotel, and if an independent site might be a good avenue for you to meet those.
Craig, as a follow-up to that, we know that there's a couple of brands that still allow the vanity sites, but there are some who don't. What is your recommendation there?
Well, I think that's it, right? If some do not, obviously we have to play by those rules, and it could be for all the right reasons. So I don't want to say anything different than that. But when you think about some of the things that we cover today, right? Social media, reviews, right? A lot of those things live outside of your website, but still a great opportunity for you to engage with your guests and try and stay top of mind, especially now. So hopefully that answers your question. Certainly from those brands that might allow you to do that, now would probably be a good time for you to explore, what are some of the benefits of including that in my property strategy, and might it help us as we come through this and ultimately in our growth phase.
Hey, Craig, a couple people have asked if you could explain AMP again.
Sure. So this is a project Google released a couple years ago now. It stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. Essentially the content lives with Google, right? So it's on Google servers. The second a guest is on their mobile device and searches for that hotel, if it has an AMP page for that content, it's going to serve up the result from Google. So as you can imagine, lightning fast. It's sitting on Google servers. It's very quickly presented to that guest. The example I give anyone on the call: look for a news article, political, in different circumstances, sports related. You're going to see a little lightning bolt next to the result, right? And this is likely the first result or one of the top. That is designates an AMP page. Click on it. Look how quickly it will load, right? That's what we're referring to. With that type of user experience, something that's very positive, you'll likely have a smile on your face. That's what Google's looking for. Is they're looking to deliver a positive experience to their consumers. That is AMP. Again, fortunate enough here at Milestone, we are the travel case study for Google. So we were, I believe, the first agency to roll that out with our clients. We now have a couple hundred sites leveraging AMP. And I think, it's a best practice. It's been a best practice now, but certainly that much more important today. Hopefully that answers your question. If you send me an email, if you want more information on it, I'm happy to share with you what we have.
Do you have any recommended tools for an SEO research?
Yeah, quite a few of them. Yeah, there's a number we use as an agency. Full disclosure, we have our own tool that's helpful for the hospitality vertical, given that our customer success team is supporting that industry and needs tools. But there are a number. So a couple that I really enjoy: SEMrush, SpyFu for your advertising audits. There are tools actually from Google that you can run mobile speeds tests. You can look at, does your site have any schema on it today? Again, it's probably a good example. Send me a note. I'll just reply right back to you with a number of tools, but then take advantage of that audit. If you haven't submitted your form yet, do it now. We'll do it for free. And quite honestly, we'll take advantage of every tool in our toolbox.
So this person is a current Milestone customer, and they want to know, how can they make sure our manager is assessing and completing some of the to-dos that you just mentioned?
Yeah, this is fantastic, guys. And obviously part of the benefit from, partnering with someone like Milestone, we have a significant team. We call it our Center of Excellence team, right? Who, while supports our customer success team, may not work directly with the client. behind the scenes, they are addressing all of these opportunities from a speed perspective, from a structured data and schema perspective. You're likely already ahead of the game with those areas, but certainly reach out to your customer success manager. They're a great resource for support during this time. Just know we're fortunate enough here at Milestone to have a pretty expansive bench of digital marketers, even beyond what you've seen as your direct point of content, who are building out material just like this.
Awesome. We'll have time for one more question, and it says, does it help SEO for a franchise brand?
Does it help SEO from a franchise brand? So probably the follow-up question to that is, obviously, what tools do you have? If let's just assume that you are one of the brands that might allow for an independent site, and it aligns with your goals. So you've created that. Great. So in that case, absolutely. Right? SEO for your independent site, while of course, right, there are references to the brand that you franchise with. A lot of the queries when we put ourselves in our guest shoes, hotels near this attraction, hotels with this amenity, right? Many of which are opportunities for you to stand out, right? Regardless of what your affiliation is, if your particular property, if that's a unique selling point for you, it's a great way for you to introduce SEO, even if you are a branded hotel. Now, the flip side to that, if as Steve mentioned, if you were a branded hotel that may not allow for an independent site, then typically, the brand has the resources and would support you from an SEO perspective. They're doing great work there. So they'll likely, just as my earlier statement, at least here inside Milestone, they may have a similar statement of all the things that they're doing for you from an SEO perspective. So two different answers. Hopefully I covered the entire question. But yeah.
Perfect. Well, Craig, that is all the questions that we have at this time. We want to thank you and Milestone, along with our partnership with the California Hotel Lodging Association, for providing this very informative webinar for everyone on. We also want to thank everybody that joined us today. Feel free to check out our events calendar on the AHOA website for future webinars, and also in our resource library for past webinars we have done. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and hope to see you join us for future webinars and AHOA events. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.